think that's guided me in so much and wanting to be around lots of people and getting energy from people because I just didn't want to be alone anymore.
How would you best explain the role your dad has played in your life?
Dad's been everything. And my parents got divorced when I was a kid, and my dad raised me. And we had a real bond. And it was around baseball. My dad worked really hard. He became a high up vice president at Bradley's, this big regional billion-dollar company. And he worked. He'd go early and work, and he'd come home. But when he'd come home, we'd go play ball. Since I was a kid. And that was, it was the moments when my dad would come home, it's like, let's go to the field, and we would go play. And, it was me and him. It was me and him. And so it was something that I looked up to him. He was my best friend, and he still is. But I think as a kid, I had one goal, and it was to make my dad proud. And everything I did, I tried to make him proud.
What about even the mention of his name touches you?
Well, I think about the other path my life could have gone. And, back then when I was a kid, kids, when there was a divorce, kids very rarely went with their dad. It was almost always they went with their mom. And, my mom had some serious challenges that she was going through. And I feel like if I went that when I was 8 years old, I wouldn't have had the life that I have, so.
It was Jesse and his dad growing up. It was the two of them. And so he has been such a staple in his life and now our life. He's one of the most incredible humans I've ever met. Jesse is the way he is because of his dad. The drive, the competitiveness, the baseball, his dad taught him all of that. And his dad actually left his job to buy a baseball club to invest in that so that Jesse could train more because they wanted to do that together. The bond that they have is what I would hope every father and son have. And I know that that's not common. Just that deep love and caring and commitment to each other for a whole lifetime is pretty special.
What do you think you learned from him?
My dad is probably one of the most positive people I've ever met in the world. When I was a kid, he used to, when I come up to the plate, he would say, "Jess, swing hard in case you hit it." And that was the big line that he would always use. And that it inspired me because I started taking big swings, obviously first in the baseball field, and I swung and missed a lot. But when I made contact, I made pretty good contact. I was one of the first kids hitting home runs over the fence, and I just swung hard at everything. And that mindset, well, I didn't realize that then, really stayed true with everything that I was doing in life. So that was huge, but the positivity is the thing. You can give people advice, you can tell people things, but what do you do? How do you act? And what do you see? And I didn't really get to truly see it until when he was older and battled 2 forms of cancer. And he had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, prostate cancer, as well as he had a tumor the size of a pear outside of his liver. And it was serious. And this was back in 2012, 2013. And he had to go to the hospital. And he was in the hospital for a long time and going through chemo and a stem cell and the whole process. And I was working. I was with our team in Gastonia. And I called my dad. I'd say, "Dad, how you doing?" And every day, he'd answer the phone and say, "Jess, I'm great. How are you?" He was battling chemo, and every day great, except one day, I never forget it. I said, "Dad, how you doing?" "Jess, I'm good. How are you?" Immediately. And I called my stepmother right after that. I said, "What's going on?" And they go, "He had one of the worst nights I could ever imagine. We weren't sure how he was going to get through it. He was as sick as you could be." And he said he was good, and he moved on. He ended up defeating cancer, going to remission, and the nurses and doctors at Beth Israel Hospital said he was the most positive patient they've ever had, and that's the reason why he defeated cancer. And I think about that. We go through challenges every day in our lives and little things that bother us. He was battling cancer, and every day, "I'm great, Jess." And that has stayed with me no matter what we go through in a given day.
When you were a kid, there was a level of loneliness.
Oh, yeah.
Describe that.
Well, I remember, my dad would go to work, and it was in the summer, there was no school, and so I'm a little older, and my dad would say, "Hey, Jess, what'd you do today?" And I would say, "Oh, I rode my bike to Alex's, or I went to John's," and I never did any of that. And I didn't have a ton of friends, and I think it was probably something that you think about that I was always wanting love and wanting to feel love, and I think that's why it's guided me now, and that I love being around 40,000 people at a major league stadium. And because as a kid, I didn't have, it was You know, when I played on baseball teams, I was around people, I felt good.
Yeah.
But when I was by myself, I wanted something more. And I think that's guided me in so much and wanting to be around lots of people and getting energy from people because I just didn't want to be alone anymore.
How do you think the divorce affected you?
I didn't understand. So I thought that I was doing something wrong. I remember there was therapy that I went to with my parents, and I said, I'll be better, guys, I'm so sorry. I thought it was because of me. I didn't understand. Because I didn't understand why parents wouldn't be together. You know, as an 89er, you don't know, no, parents are together, that's my mom, that's my dad. I didn't get it. I didn't realize how deep it was, the problems that were happening. You know, my dad tried to help her out and get her a place, and she just went into some challenges. You know, she had real difficulties, and you know, she bounced around from place to place, and you know, we would see each other for a little bit here and there, but not much. There was never, you know, a real close connection that we had.
What do you think you did that avoided kind of those same pitfalls?
Well, my dad kept me on the right track. Jess, you know, said, you want to go to college, you know, you got to get a full scholarship. And he goes, the way to get a full scholarship is you got to get good grades, and you got to be either good at sports or something else. And so every day I was working to get all A's and working to do grades, and it was hard for me. School was very, very hard for me, but I worked really hard, and he pushed me onto what my life could be if I was focused on doing the right thing. I don't know if that would have been the same path, because he role modeled it for me every day. He worked so hard on everything and did such a great job, and we had this, you know, we had a nice house, and we had a great, you know, I was able to, you know, we'd go to nice restaurants, we'd go on vacations, we did things that because of my dad's work ethic that I saw modeled in him. And so I was like, all right, you know, monkey see, monkey do. I want to be able to be that successful in doing the right thing.
His mom's addiction influenced him how, you think?
I think anybody who grows up without a mom figure who's present is going to be different than somebody who grows up with a very nurturing, always there type of mother figure. And so when Jesse didn't have that for a lot of those young years when you're very impressionable, he learned to do a lot of things himself. He's very independent, and that can be a blessing and a curse, but he has learned to turn all of that into positives.
What do you think you learned from going through that back then?
You know, it's hard to go back there. I'm one of the people that, you know, when you ask, like, how was it, you know, sleeping on an airbed when you had nothing? It's like, I moved past those things. I don't know how it necessarily shaped me. I know it did. I know that it is something I am still hungry for every single day.
How so? My
kids, Emily, the people that I work closest with, my friends. You know, I want to feel like I'm doing something to be loved, that I want to make them proud, just like I tried to make my dad proud. So I think it guides me in how I make my decisions.
How do you think that impacted how he's then handled parenting your foster kids?
I am grateful for how Jesse took his childhood and bottled it up and made it into something so useful now as an adult and as a parent. You know, he didn't have that loving, nurturing mom figure in his life at first. And I think now he makes sure that our kids have that.
I didn't have someone telling me they loved me as a kid. You know, my dad and I say it to each other all the time now. I don't think we ever said it to each other. It never happened. I didn't have it. And then my mom, who wasn't around later on, she just started saying it to me. I'm like, we don't even know each other that well. So I didn't have that direct love every day. So I didn't have that nourishment of, hey, I'm with you, we got this, we're doing this together. So yeah, I mean, my kids, the people that are close to me, you know, whenever I do something, I'm like, was that good? Is that, like, I ask those questions, which is an insecurity, and I get it, I realize it. But I want to make sure that, you know, they feel like I'm doing right for them and right for us and right for our family.